suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire. Suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire.
Hello guys, welcome to the first ever stream. I hope everyone's doing well. Hope my audio's alright. I'm getting used to this, so Please tell me if anything is too loud, too soft. I'll probably put the music down a bit. Okay, thank you for the people that have been following while I've been here. So, what am I going to be doing in these streams? Well, I am actually going to be trying about 20%. Yep, I can do that. Give me a sec. How is this a bit? Is this any better? Other than that, I'm clear to go. Okay, cool. Old leaks, yes. So, what am I planning to do? So, I thought about it, and I've decided I am going to do some streaming of the actual code itself. So, what we're planning to do today is have a look at emojis. Chat emojis, to be exact. So what I've got here is our project that I've been working on. Apu, thank you for following. Boy Broom, thank you for following. So yeah, I'm probably going to be a bit wary at the minute because I have never done streaming before, so this is all new to me. But we have here the actual project of the game. As you can see, run around, all that sort of stuff. Now the thing that we are looking at today is this chat system. So at the minute, if I put hi, you get hi. If you hit T, and you can just stick in smiley, and that comes up like that. So what I'm planning to do today is make that smile change into a actual smiley. Not going to go into too much depth of it, but that's what the plan is. Now I've got to get myself sorted. So we have this that I've quickly created, which literally is just an image inside of a canvas panel, inside of another canvas panel, which is going to be holding our image. Now the image, the text itself is in these two text. So we've got the match chat, which is just a simple chat box, and we have the match chat item, which is the text and this. Now this is mostly going to be changed a lot because this doesn't handle multi. Yes, Aurelia does have a short skirt. This can only support one line, and there's going to be loads of different bugs, but I'm mostly trying to get a solidly working back end of this set up. So what we got here is, so this is where we get to change up a bit. The API. Now a lot of people have heard me talk about the API. Now what the API does is it handles everything. So it handles all of the it's been removed so yeah. So so what we want to do is with the API, it handles things like logging in and logging out, and it handles all the other things like matches and things like that that actually control the game, even to the point where we're using it to hold all our mechanics info. So what is the API? Well, the API is basically a web page, and that's it. This web page is a little different, as you don't see it as a HTML page or something that you can view. It's just data. So for instance, this one is working on my local host, has an endpoint, and what it does is if you call that, it will give you a bit of information, or in logging in for a case, it will give you a token and things like that to actually enable you to log in. So you're making an in-game 2D object into an overlay on a text box, or is this going to be something floating over the character's head? At the minute, I'm really just trying to learn about downloading images from the internet and maybe caching them and things like that. A lot of the more advanced stuff, like actually getting the emoji or the icon in the right place, will be done later. And yes, we might put them over the head. It was something that I thought about. We're going to try it out, see what happens. If mechanics don't like it, then we'll just have to get rid of it. So this is what we call a REST API. So a REST, there's in the world of APIs, you have two. You have a REST API and a SOAP API. You can have more, but usually people either go with SOAP or REST. This is a REST API. It has multiple endpoints. So for instance, this one has emoji smile. Now I could, if I wanted to, put emoji sad, and that would then give me more data. Now I don't actually have an emoji, I don't have the system running at the minute, so you won't see it. But if it was, then it will show you information about sad emoji. Now this literally just gives us information about some simple stuff. If I actually start this up again and run this again, smile, set that, give it a little second. So what it's actually currently doing is it's going off to our database asking for a smile, checking to see if there's a smiley emoji in there. If there is, it will then come back with some information, which is what's currently in now. It takes a long time when you first load up, because with C#, which is what this is written in, it doesn't have, it has to compile everything when it first starts up. Once it's compiled, it's called dynamic compiling, so it compiles the code, most of the code, but a lot of the stuff has to be compiled when it first loads up. And I have seemed to have screwed that one up. There was an error. So what did I cause the error with? I guess the name doesn't exist. How did I do this? Should be that. Or am I going bonkers? There you go. So back to the API. The API for us with this one has multiple endpoints. So for instance, you've got smile, and I can actually show you some of the code here. This is actually our API. Engine takes so long to file. Yes, it does. So this is what we got as a basic, what we call controller. So in the language in C#, which is what I'm using something called MVC, which is an engine that's on top of C# that Microsoft have written that makes it a little bit easier to write APIs, websites, things like that. So this one is getting the emoji, and then this one gets the emoji that you specify, which is what we've done. So this name is the name of the emoji we want it to pull, and then it will produce a new JSON that comes out. That JSON is this. So have the name, I fed the name back in. You can do that, you don't have to. You've got your location. Now this is actually a location that's here, and that is of a smiley face. This is actually, currently I've only got one, which is a smile, and it is downloaded from the Twitter pack. If you don't know, Twitter actually have a free set of emojis that you can download that are all open source. It's actually the same ones that all of the Discord ones are built on that as well, so who knew? So we got that, and then we got the format, which is going to come in later on if multiple people want to, or we put multiple different formats into it. Later on we can change that around. So we got this smiley face, and what I'm hoping to do is get this smiley face to appear when I type in the type in a smile like that. So currently we're messing around with the idea of using the Discord syntax for making a thing. And thank you, Shakar, for following. Sorry, I didn't see that one. So we got smile, it doesn't do it now. So to start off with, we need to actually find where we're going to actually catch that that syntax that we want to find. So if we go into the match icon item, now this is where it's actually creating and setting text. So when it's constructing the widget, it's setting its text from a couple of things. I don't actually know why I replicated that. That should not be replicated at all. So you have your actual text from text, and these two are exposed on spawn. So you can actually set this when you construct it, and then when it gets constructed, it will then stick the text in there. So what we need to do here is we need to capture it, and if it's, by the way, I am new to this. This is just me making it up as I go along. So, and I'm not really the best at doing stuff in Unreal Engine. So if I open up in a Firefox, what we need to use to catch it is something called regex. So regex is basically a way of being able to take a, as you can see here, take a string and use it to find expression. So you take use an expression to find all of the different words that are attached to that expression. So what I've created is, what we want is, we've got in here, say we want hi and then we want smile. Smile. I can't spell today. I'm also dyslexic, by the way, so that's going to be, that's why I sometimes spell things weird. So what we want to do is, first we want to find how are you? Let's just do that. So we want to be able to find all instances of this inside these two colons. So what we can do is, I'm not going to give you a masterclass because this gets absolutely messy as hell if you get into really long regexes. But what we want to do is, as you can see, I've put a colon in here and it's found those two colons, and these are two separate search items it's found. Now what we want to do is, we want to find everything that is inside it. Now, to work out if when you create an expression, you can use this here, and I will just copy and paste it because I'm lazy. You can use this expression, and what it does is it will find every anything that is uppercase A to Z or lowercase a to Z, and I actually need to change this up because we need to get basically the entire, any sort of character. So I need to find the one about characters. Give me a sec. Regex. And by the way, this is how I do it. I like to just pull it from the internet. Regex. Find all excluding comma. So okay, so we're going to use this, and from the looks of it, that is a not. So what we can do is change this, which will basically just search for anything. And what we can actually do is, we want to make sure that it's in between. So what we do is we do a plus, and then we can just, so we can do it, we can do a plus here, and and then plus that. So what this is doing is, it's finding everything in between these two, but has A to Z. Or what I will plan to do is put this, which is, doesn't really matter to be honest, but it will just ignore the semicolon that we're looking for at the end. If I didn't do that, it will it could work, couldn't work if multiple people are doing it. Yeah, this is the same kind of tech you use to explicit someone's text, right? Yeah, so regexing basically enables you to search through an entire piece of text and isolate via a certain pattern or expression. So this is basically, so if I then do another one, which is test, it then finds this one as well. And you can make multiple ones, so hi and then joy. But then if you do it, you can then put this and it will not work it out. So it's how you can basically find multiple ones. So this regex is what we want to use to be able to find a similar structure to what Discord uses. Now we can, if we want to change this later on, all we need to do is just change this regex to anything we need. Okay, so if we go back to the here, so what we want to do is, I am going to take the actual text, which is the text that the user has sent. Now this, by the way, is taken from a chat tutorial on YouTube. It's one of the, it's literally you just type in chat system or chat text chat for UE4, and it will be the first, it will probably be the first YouTube video that you see. Now I've actually installed a separate library in here which enables me to do a regex, or should be able to do a regex. Let's just have a look. There you go. So what we want to do is we want to do a regex match. So we want to take, and of course I don't know why they have string and text, which I really don't know why, and we want to check to see if that regex pattern is available in anywhere in that text that's been sent, and we want to branch it. Now if it doesn't, it will go through this. If it does, at the minute, if I run this, if it doesn't, say hi, it comes out. If I have, I can then do that and then put hi smiley. It now shows text box because it has no text in it that it can. So what do we want to do next? Let's go back here. So now we've got to take this, and now I've got to remember stuff. We need to, let's try doing a regex get matches. So, and then we'll just collapse this node and call it get replace emojis. Emojis. Yeah. Can't spell. And then we want to stick the output as an execute pin because we want to pass this through and run everything after. exec, and we want to be an execute and pull that back into setting the text color. So, and pull this up. So what we want to do now is take the actual text again, and let's do a regex get matches. No, well, I've already got it there. String and pattern. So what this will do is it will go through and through the entire text and find every single part. It will basically find every little bit where those match. And then what we can do is a for each loop. And that will now go through each one and find out and return in the element what it is. Now if we break this, this gives you a few bits of information. It can give you the match number, so it tells you where it's matching, so if it's 1, 2, 3. Now we're not going to really worry about that at the minute. I'm really just doing a simple one where it can only handle a single emoji. Well, it can handle more with this, but we will it will have to be changed a bit around to do that, and I need to change this, so get rid of that. Right, now we've got a for each. We need to download the image. So as I said, the API has the has a list of all the images. Now I'll be touching on this later on, but at the minute we're taking we just want to be able to download this smiley face. So what we can do is there's a handy node called download image, which I actually only found out about half an hour ago, which makes my life a lot easier because I was going to have to go through and show you go through working out how to actually download this image manually, but I don't have to worry. So later on we'll actually be using this to we'll be using the information we get from the API here, this location, to be able and plug that into this download image, so it will download it that way. But at the minute we don't need to do that because we're only really wanting to test the smile. So what we can do is under texture, we want to create a new widget. Where is it? It's hiding. Create widget. And on success. Now this isn't gonna, we're gonna have to do some testing to make sure if it's failed. If it fails, then we're gonna have to handle that later. But if we go into class, we want to create a wb underscore emoji, and this has the texture that we feed in, and now that is going to create a new emoji, which is in here, with And what I've plugged into here is the texture, is what is setting the dynamic texture that we download. So, thank you, it's Nodi, for following. I'm making PP. You'll be surprised. I will give you a little sneaky that we've got. Is that the instant messaging system or service that we're using for the private chats is actually using the same service of what WhatsApp was originally built on. So technically, you can say it's WhatsApp, but we don't have the custom encryption like they do, which we don't really need. It's a bit overkill for what we want. So if I go to my image, which I have created, so what we want to do now is we want to take this text pane, which is this bit here, which is literally just a it's a horizontal slot box, which actually is quite interesting because this is on fill. You can do auto. Might use that later on. So what we want to do is, actually I'm going to just create it as how I did it beforehand. At the same time, I have missed a step just for testing purposes. Instead of replacing the object, we want to do a replace. And what this will do is just give us the string and replacement. We want 1, 2, 3, 4 and replace it with here. So what this will do is replace any of the emojis that we have, or the regex emojis that we have, with the new with just spaces, so we can just stick an image there for a minute. What we'll plan to do later on is use the indexing to be able to split the string up, and then you can join them together to actually make it work that way. Springy 2085, welcome. Thanks for following. Okay, once we've got this, we're creating the text panel. At the minute, we want to add it as a child. So what this will do is it will take this new widget we've created and then add it programmatically to our text panel. We feed that into there, and then at the minute, because I'm just lazy at the minute, I want to just take this widget and I'm going to set its translation. Set render translation. Later on, we can use this. We can add it in and then split it up that way. Because what I've done is actually I want to fill that. So what I've actually done is created a canvas panel over the top of the widget, which is quite bad because I've actually got it split up, and I can use that later on to do that. But okay. Now we need to set the transform, so we can make a vector 2D. Oh, I can make a widget. What am I doing wrong? Not render transform, it's a render translation. This is pretty bad because it's not going to take into account any of the anchoring, but for what we got here it doesn't really matter. Now I've got this set to 0 and I'm going to take the begin index and just lazily times it by 13 because we don't this is something that I calculated earlier. It's not perfect, but it will do the job at the minute. We want to convert that. Okay, so what we got there is should, in theory, if we compile it and play it, let's see what happens. Now, a lot of coding is just trial and error, so let's see. Hi, that text still works. Hi, smile. Text block. So, what have I done wrong here? Let's have a look. I've been an idiot. And I need to actually set the text. So I'm going to take this message widget and I'm going to have to go in here, and as well as doing the replace, which is what we got here, I need to set the text. And as I said, this is really basic, really not what you want to do, very unoptimized, but for testing purposes and prototyping it out, should be fine. Thank you, Oswald, for following. Okay, let's hit play and see what happens. Hi. Yep. See. Smile. Okay, so we got nothing. Let's have a look and see where else we're missing. So it's now setting the text. It's getting the regexes. But for some reason, what it's setting the text to is right because it's removing it. We're getting the regex matches. Doing a for loop. Breaking it. Routine, yeah. And then we're adding it to child and setting its render translation. So in theory, it should be working. Why doesn't it? Now it could be that this is not working. So let's test and see if we're getting going here. No, so it's not getting here. Check this. Right, so in theory it should be getting here. Yep, take high. So it's getting there. Current value, let's jump. And we'll see what return value is. It's empty, so in theory, if I go into step over, it's gone straight out. And the reason why is because I have been an idiot and I am replacing the regex and then trying to search for it because I'm an idiot. So in theory, no. Hi. You're doing that. If I step over, and we now have, as you can see, a current value which has a match number. So in theory, I should be able to drop the waypoint up here, resume, oops, yep, hit there, breakpoint, resume, and there we go, smiley face. Should be able to put hi and then smiley. Actually, you can put whatever you like in here at the minute, we're not really checking to see if it's... So, that is a very simple emoji, extremely simple. So, the next part is to probably pull the URL. Now this, unfortunately, is going to be a little different because we have to actually do a bit of C++ code. Let me just get the stuff. So, this is what I've been working on mostly, which is the API library, which I call it a library, but it's inbuilt into the project, which holds all of our calls, requests, and everything to that web page. So what I'm going to do is create a new class. We're in Red API and we want it to be since this is all part of chat. I don't think I have a chat one, no. And then we call it web chat, because this handles all of the web chat based stuff. Now, this is my usual naming convention, but I like to put everything at the beginning with web, so I know it's part of my own library. So if we create class and see where that goes, it's going to take a little while to compile. By the way, if you want to actually ask me anything, feel free to ask them in chat. I will be happy to give you any explanation or any help with anything you need. I do say that this isn't, UE4 isn't my strongest suit. I am usually working on networking stuff, and yeah. But please feel free to actually ask anything. Unless it's to do with PS4, Xbox, or if you can have more leaks, because this is as much as you're getting at the minute. Okay, compiling new C++ code takes an age when we're doing it. This you have to compile new modules, especially when you're getting as big as this. We've got tons of code sitting in the back ends that needs to get compiled when it's first added. God, you chat, you're quiet today. Compiling. By the way, if you ever do coding or do anything to do with computers, you'll understand that sitting there waiting for either a please wait or something that's telling you to please wait is usually what you see most of the time in your career. So while that's creating, let's go through a bit more. Where am I? Trying to find the right thing. This. Okay, cool. It's hot reloaded. Now, what we got? Greenlander 92. Welcome. So simple C++. This is what you get when you create a completely blank C++ file. Now I'm going to pull in here. We've got this. Now this is our game instance. We have two game instances actually. One actually feeds off of this one. Another one feeds off this one. This one holds all of our, as you can see, libraries. So you've got the user profile, development tools, game server stuff for game servers, feedback. When you want to report a player, it will go through this code, and all the basic mechanic downloads and things like that. And we have a get game version, which is actually not part of the web, but it's there. So what we want to do is, if we go into here, we need to first include it. So while I'm doing this, I'll give you a little bit of explanation. So if you're not if you haven't used C++ or programming languages before, C++, there's two major types of programming. There's object orientated and procedural. So procedural programming is using things like C. It's quite a lower level programming language. It doesn't have as many, you don't have as much overhead when working. You're nearly down to the bare bones of working on the actual devices, core device system itself. With C, there's other procedural, but basically with procedural you have classes, and you have a header file and a class file and a header file. The header file describes what that class is going to do. It usually has, as you can see here, a list of functions that class is going to actually have. And object orientated is a language that is based around what we call, sprightly enough, objects. Objects are much more complex variables, if you think of it like that. In C you can have simple standard variables like integer, float, things like that, but with C++, with object orientated, you can actually create your own variables that have their own functions inbuilt into them, it's really quite useful for quite a lot of people are using it. The two main focused ones now are C# and Java. Java's quite old now. A lot of people are going over to C# as it is a lot nicer, but it's also made by Microsoft, so you have to watch it because you can't just use .NET Framework, you have to actually use the .NET Framework core. With C++, it's actually a mixture of both. You get the ability to create your own objects like we've done here. So this is its own object, web chat is its own object, and inside that object you have the functions, you have variables, you can stick as much you want, and it acts as its own little variable. And then what you can do is you can make copies of that, and each copy can have its own different bit of data inside it. A good show of this is if I go into the API. Where is it? It's this one. You see here this emoji. Now, emoji isn't a standard variable in it's something that I've created. Now this emoji, if you pass in the name of the emoji, it will then create a new object of this emoji class with this emoji inside it. Now usually you can actually find it better if I take this and then run the command again. If you actually have a look inside it, if I just pull this and continue and highlight over it, you can actually see information. So this is actually the details. If you have, you can actually see that inside there, instead of it just holding a name, it holds another object called details, which is what we call an emoji, which I've called emoji model. Now that emoji model then has its own information inside it. So but I can then create a new emoji. Say I want to create a new emoji E1 and put in the name of sad. Inside this emoji, which has got the name of smile, I can have E1, which will be the same object but a new instance of it, and that will have the sad and all the information about the sad emoji. So that's how object oriented works. Now with C++, it brings the both, so you've got that, but then you've also got the niceties of having class files now, and having including and things like that. Now with C# and Java, with C# you use something called namespaces to tell it where to look for a certain class, which is what but for C# you actually use the same standard as using for C, which is using the include, and then you have to put in the file path that you want to use. So what I'm planning to do is take this web API chat, and we want to use the web chat. So I don't know how many people actually use this, but you have something called uProperty and uFunction. Now these aren't standard C++. This is something called UE++, which is it's a nickname people call it, and it's a macro-based system. So if you want to tell UE when it compiles this code that, oh, I want to use this function, I want this function to be able to be called in a blueprint, well then if you use the UE function and tell it blueprint callable, it will enable you to call this function in the in your main blueprint. But if you have but it will still need an execute pin. There's two main ones I used to use: blueprint callable and blueprint pure. Blueprint pure is where you don't need an execution pin. So some of the nodes you see, for instance, if we go back into the game file, see for instance this one here, toText, doesn't have an execution pin. So that is blueprint pure, whereas a set text is blueprint callable. Now callables are usually used if you want to edit that object, whereas pures are usually only allowed to be used if you want to pull a variable out and nothing gets changed in the background. So if we go back here, I'll give you an overview of that. We want to create a new blueprint read only because we don't want the blueprints to be able to mess with this. This is actually a because this is a base file, we don't want any we want the web instance to handle and then anyone who wants to pull information out of it can just pull it out without worrying about actually modifying it. And we want to use new web chat, which is that new chat file that we have, and we will call it web chat. So now we have a web chat here. If we go to game instance, this is the constructor of this web game instance, and what we want to do is we want to create a new line in here, call it web game chat, and shove this down here, and we want to set it to null pointer. So what this will basically do is, if there's a really interesting meme that I found which shows off that null and 0 aren't the same thing. 0 is actually a value, null is actually nothing in there, and null PTR is null pointer, which if people do Java, if you see, you will probably see a lot of null pointer exceptions because people have forgotten to actually put values in, and you can get null pointer values here. So we've done that. Now I want to create, this is where things, so we want to create a new instance of this object, of this class. Now in C++ we do it by doing this new command, but in Unreal, this is where things become a bit different. You have to put new object, new object, and we want to pass in the class that we want to create the new object in. So this will be new web chat, and later on we might want to set the profile, because if we want to, some people were floating ideas around about maybe locking certain emotes and getting them unlocked when you get a certain level on a character, so we might want to do that later on, but I am not going to mess with that in a minute. So now we've got this web chat, this is where things get a bit more interesting. So we want to now, so while we're here, let's just, this uClass tells Unreal Engine that it's a class that you want to do. Now at the minute, if you just try doing compiling this, nothing will happen. You won't be able to see this web chat at all, because you're not telling Unreal Engine that you actually want to be able to see this in the blueprint. So if we use blueprintable and blueprint type, now you don't really need blueprint type, but blueprintable is the best, the one you need. That will enable the blueprints to be able to use this class to be able to create it and be able to use it inside there. So we now need to create a function, new function, and I've literally just copied and pasted this, and we want to call this, so this category is only really what you see inside the list. So what we got is chat emoji, and what we want to do is get list, and we want to be able to, let's just pull this out, and so this is where things get a bit more interesting in C++. Usually if you want to, in normal C++ and standard other languages, you can you can do different things. Usually you just use, if you want to return something, you can use this void and change it to say boo if you wanted to. But with Unreal, you can actually do a new do it actually in as parameters. So if you do const in before it, so we do const user, let's just use const f-string user. So what this will do is, because you put const in there, a constant is something that cannot be changed, it's fixed. So what this will do is actually create, because it's a fixed, UE will look at that and say, right, because it's fixed, we're going to have this as an input. So doing something with const in front of it will enable you to have, if we get this, have an input. So if we go back here, we don't want an input, we want it to output the list of emojis. Now actually for this, this is where you have to think. When you do a call to a web page, it actually, we don't want emoji list at the minute. We just want emoji. Do we want emoji list? For starters, let's just get emoji, and we will put in a const f string, which by the way is a string, and we want the ampersand symbol. The and symbol just basically means that it's a, I think it's an object or pointer to the object. So when you, this is where things get a bit more complex. With standard object orientated, you don't really need to worry about memory management. So when you create an object, it will automatically create the object and designate an area, and then you pull it back. Now if you want to get a bit more in depth, C doesn't have any, well, has little memory management, which I actually found out today at work, where I accidentally overflowed something and caused all of my memory to, parts of my memory to be wrong, and just killed my device outright, which is quite fun. I have to figure out why that is, and I've got to sort that tomorrow. But you can, when you think of it, a computer stores, so for instance, if it's storing a string, like an F string, and you're storing high, it's being stored in a place in your RAM, or it could be, and that RAM place has an address, and what you're basically doing is you're with and also star, is you're passing in the, for the star you're actually passing in, if you actually read this, it's actually then will be, if you actually read it as, you can actually read it as an integer, and that will pass back the actual address where that bit of string is being held. Whereas this is literal, I think, and it actually just passes back the actual string. And we want to call this as the name. So this is a blueprint function, a name, and as I have a handy tool, I can just generate the implemented function and it will jump me there. So what I have is something called resharper, which is up here, and that enables me to quickly find issues. It's a great tool if anyone wants to use it. You have to pay for it, but it's a brilliant tool. So now we've got this, we've got get emoji. Now, if I save that and we do a compile or a build, so things take a slight time to work out, we should see this appear in our code. Back to building in. Anyway, how is everyone in chat? Awfully quiet. Looks like no one's there. Either that or I have a really long delay. Oh, hi Shikar. It's not that bad of a delay then. A little tired. Trying to sort Node out yesterday with some files. Should have gone to sleep, but in the end I had to finish that off. Actually, who have we got? Yeah, so people know or want to know what I do in this project. I am the lead tech. I basically try and keep everyone in check. Oh, thanks for that. I'm new to this, so it's kind of a bit weird trying to talk what I'm doing, but so yeah, I keep everyone's code in check. I look after the DevOps system. And well, mostly the DevOps system. I don't really do much in the way of DevOps itself. I just create all. We have a Jenkins system which runs all our builds anything and everything that we ever write. I help run these servers with Scavenger, and I also run a few things in-house, and because I have a couple of servers sitting in my garage which I do, and yeah, all round just random coding and mostly networking. There's a bit some stats. There's over 100 requests I've already written for the API, ranging from logging in to filing player reports, bug reports, this emoji system. So you can see here, if I go into this, we've got feedback administration, match handling, analytics. These are all little, and each one of those classes has multiple different requests inside them. So that's what I've been mostly doing for the past 5 months now. Just working on that. Also, I keep an eye on the wiki. Set that up a couple of weeks back to get that working, and just general server maintenance and looking after the company or groups shared storage, which we also host on Microsoft. So now I've done that, what we want to do is probably not do it in here, because what we want to do, actually now we can get emoji. So instead of doing the download image, we can just do a get emote. If we actually no, we need to get the game instance. Now the reason why I've used the game instance rather than something like the game mode is because the game instance can travel between any level that you play. So for instance, if the main menu is its own level, the draft lobby is its own level, and things like that. Now the game instance, you can put stuff in there and it will travel between those levels. So for things like being able to access user profiles when they log in, but then we want to access the profile when we're in the middle of the match, then we can pull just the game instance. Now what we can, because this is accessible everywhere. So what we can do is we need to cast this to our web game instance. I could probably actually do this over here instead of doing it every single time. Little optimization trick. Usually we handle class when it casts fails, but at the minute doing a quick stream. So once we got that, we can then get the web chat, which is here, and then get the emoji. Put a smile, because that's all we've got at the minute. And what we want to do is actually change the name. So what I'm thinking of is we've got a slight problem of we don't really want to be downloading the emoji, the image every time we have a new emoji come in. So we want to do some sort of caching in the background. So what I'll probably do is in this get emoji, instead of calling it get emoji, I want to actually call it get cached emoji. And what it will produce, it will produce the texture and a boolean. That boolean says if it's cached. If it's not cached, we will then get the emoji from the list of so we get the URL from the list, and then so what we'll do is when we first start the game up, it will actually download a list of all of the emojis that we have running have there. Once the emoji's there, we can then pull that, do our work, and then store it away. At the minute we'll probably store it in RAM, but later on we could actually store it in a file. So instead of having to re-download new emojis every time you get a piece of text, it will automatically. Now, as you saw when we ran it the first time, it was quite quick, but we don't really want to be battering the server with all of this stuff. So what we can do is, if we go back to, actually probably best to remove that, as it will have a hissy fit if we don't. Let's rename this and we want to put in the name. We want to rename it to get cached. Yeah, can't spell. Cached emoji, we go name, and then because we want these as outputs, we don't put the const in them, so we can put a boolean of, we'll have to put that, is available, and then we're going to need a texture 2D, so u texture. Now I've got to find this, so handily we want a texture 2D dynamic and Epic have this really useful thing where they have changed their wiki, and everything that uses syntax highlight has died on me. Died on everyone. So it's an absolute mess trying to find out. Now, is there a U texture 2 dynamic? Okay. Texture 2 dynamic. UE4 C++. There we go. So we want the U texture 2T dynamic, which is going to be our texture. Now it's red, and we want to actually pull the texture 2D. So if we have a look in here, it actually tells you where, you go to the bottom, which module it's in, which is in the engine, and the header is where we want to actually look. So we'll look at texture dynamic. Now I know that you don't actually have to put runtime engine classes, engine and things like that. You can actually go in here and type in #include. And we want texture 2D dynamic. Which it doesn't have. So I'm going to be lazy and let my tool do the work for me. Actually no, it's part of engine, so we have to include engine.h, and then as you can see now it's not moaning at me, and the only thing it is moaning about me is the fact that now I've changed this, I have to change to C++, as there isn't anything in here. We need to change that to yes. So what we also need is a private. So private means that it's only accessible inside this. Why can't we just put emoji in the game file? I am planning to have it so we can add emojis anytime we want without having to recompile the game. It's similar to what the mechanics data is like. If we did it in the game files, we would have to recompile the game every single time we wanted to add new emojis. With this, we can just upload it to the database, and it would be there. Maybe later on, if we say want to create new ones, or we create a new character, we can, or we want to have a new emoji set, we can do that way. So what we want is a private, and we want a map. So tmap. So what a map does in this is enables you to map two different data types together. So what we want to do is map an f string with a texture 2D dynamic. So this will be our cache. So this will be our emoji cache, or texture cache. So the emoji texture cache, and that will hold. So what it's basically doing is taking a string and mapping it to a texture 2D. So if we say we can have, for instance, you can think of it like a table really. So if we have this, we can do that. So we have f string and the texture 2D dynamic. we can do is say we have a string, f string of say smile, and then we can map that to, I'm going to just do it, but we can map that to a texture, which will be a smiley face. And then we can have another one which will be sad, and we can map that to a sad face, and these will be textures rather than actual things like this. So that's how you do that. So we got a texture cache, and this is going to hold all of our textures. So what we can do is we can do an if statement if the emoji texture cache, and then we want to do a, now we want to do a find. Now, which one do we want? We want to find, and we want to paste in the name of the thing. Now we can actually do this up here. So we want to do a texture 2D, texture 2. No, I keep forgetting that you have to put a U in front of this. So texture 2D dynamic. And what this is the texture equals find. What is wrong with this? Okay, so this is actually getting a pointer of the thing, which is why it's complaining. As I said, pointers a memory address of that object. So if texture dot is valid texture. Now that is a really useful one. Everyone should use that if they want to check, because it basically checks to see if the data is not null and has actual valid data inside it. Now if it is valid, we want to set is available to true, and we want to set the texture to the texture we got from the emoji cache. And if it's, and then we want to return, okay, we need to put which is interesting. What am I doing? Cannot convert. Okay, it's complaining because that doesn't. Let's see if that compiles. It's probably not, but my luck. See, the problem is sometimes it. There we go, fixed it. And then we want to do a return. I don't usually like doing returns halfway through here, but. And then we want to do an else. If it's not, we want to return is available, it's false. And texture is going to equal null pointer. So what that will do now is it will go through the texture cache. If it's not in the cache, it will. If it is in the cache, it will return it. If it's not in the cache, then it won't. So let's rebuild this. And we have to wait again. Right. Just close some windows down that I don't need now. Okay. And it doesn't like it. What doesn't it like? So just the output. Most likely is the fact that it doesn't like this. Might not, but we'll see. By the way, this is all just trial and error. So it doesn't like that. So it have to be a pointer, but it doesn't like to give a pointer out. So what am I doing to fix that? Wrong way. Also not very good at C#. Great. We'll see where I'm going wrong. So we can see where else doing this sort of stuff. Okay, so find or output a key type. That is outputting as a thing. Okay, time to go to Google. E4. Let's see. Casting. That's constant. That's not what that. Let's have a look. No help. Great. So that should fix nothing because these ones can't. It needs to be a pointer. But you can't then do a pointer on here. Let's have a look. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Actually, it's that. I learn something new every day. Never knew that. Enough for the W. So, nope. Oh, I've done it again. I always do that. I've been spending a lot of time working in the Unreal Engine code at the minute, so I keep hitting local debug instead. Which I don't want it to do. So, compile. Okay, just to let you guys know, I am going to probably stop the stream in about 20 minutes. So, yeah, it's still compiling. Yeah, there's these get environments which it doesn't like. Unfortunately, these dump S environments don't work, and I've got an error again. And it's the same error. Great. This is what you get with C++ code. It seems that definition seems to be different. Oh, great. 20 cents. Maybe it's because maps need to have pointers in them. Creating. Okay, let's try building this. As I said, this is a lot of trial and error. It might not be to everyone's cup of tea, but unfortunately this is what I have to put up with every single day, so okay. Not convert value type, so what, this is actually something completely different. So what it's trying to do is because this is no suggestion, so find produces a it not liking? Oh, come on. Problem is having both IntelliSense and ReSharper on it, they seem to clash a bit and it takes some time for them to actually think about what they want to do. Double pointer? What the actual hell? It's because I've put this in as a pointer. That's interesting. So I would love to get this sorted by the end of tonight, which doesn't look like it's going to happen. God damn it. Probably something to do with the fact that I'm trying to do this, but let's have a look back at Google. You have to return the act of a pointer, not reference. Okay, so that's doesn't work for another reason. Okay, so it actually might be another reason that it's not liking this. Let's have a look. Let's do another rebuild. hopefully next time I have this all fixed. Oh, that's going to fail because I've missed that the dynamic texture should be a pointer here. Which is why everything is moaning. No. Okay. So in theory people are saying this should just work. Which I would have thought it did, but UI is moaning about it for some reason. Okay, right. So this is coming from UI's compiler itself. Oh, it's an unresolved. I'm an idiot. It's an unresolved external symbol. So it should be a class. And that might fix that issue. Or was that pushing out errors in reference public? Interesting thing is it's coming from new texture, which is... Yeah, let's have a look. Okay, let's do that. No. 4. Okay. And let's include that engine in here. Try building that instead. I've got 10 minutes to get this sorted. Not, I'm going to have a look at it over tomorrow and have to get back to you on that one. Okay. Are we going to see a linker issue? Yep, we're going to see a linker issue. So this is actually something to do with linking. So I can give you a quick explanation. The way you compile code is you start by compiling it, and at the same time as it compiles, it also does something called linking, which it looks for all the files that attach all these header files, and it tries linking them to, tries making a path so it knows where to pull any information or functions from. Currently, it's not finding the texture 2D dynamic, which is interesting because it's supposed to just be in the engine.h, which is module engine. Now I can try and import let's see if I can include this. But that's telling me it can't find it. So let's take that. That's because I'm an idiot, and actually it's not there. I have to go into the engine folder first. Let's have a look. Hello? Oh, it's still dynamically searching for crap. Let's just get rid of all of that. The engine. Texture 2D dynamic.h. There we go. I can now get rid of this. Engine. So those error, so let's just recap what's happened. Is this error here is saying it's unresolved external symbol. So what it's trying to say is that it can't find the code that represents the new texture 2D dynamic. And what I didn't, it was part of the engine, but unfortunately it couldn't find a direct link to it. So what I had to do is tell it that it's inside engine, and that's the code file it's supposed to be. In theory, build this now. Again, we will see what happens. Right. Way too much code. And it's still broken. Why is it still broken? It can't seem to find U texture. Okay. This one's actually part of Unreal itself. Let's go back to Google and see if someone has had that actual error. No. Resolve the start symbol. There we go. Part of the minimal, oh that's a new one, minimal API, and stops these symbols from being exported, so you won't be able to inherit them outside of the module they're created in. In this case, you can do your own build of Unreal from source and put your class in the engine module. That's part of the engineering. Okay, so that's a new one. What's actually the issue is that this UTexture2 dynamic is actually part of what we call, from the looks of it, a minimal API, which is the core engine stuff, and they have locked you out of it. So I'm going to have to think of a better way of doing this. But unfortunately I can't convert a texture 2D into from a texture 2D dynamic, because they're two completely separate things and there is no way of converting them. So what can I do? I have to think on that one. What else have we got in here? Download image. Texture. Yeah, because it's got all these things like chroma keys and texture grouping and things like that, which isn't supported in standard 2D textures. So I'm going to have a think of that one, I'm afraid. And I guess this will be the end of the stream. Thank you very much, guys, for joining me, and for the people that have followed. I will, be on Discord if people want to talk to me in the tech discussion channel, and feel free. Thank you for joining, and I will see you later.